This place reeks.
I know. Wait, you don't expect me to mop up, do you?
Come on, those guys are cake.
Not to mention, much sexier than you.
Well, your sexy little friends. They're coming for a dance.
They're still sexier than you are.
The 3D brawler God Hand, developed by Clover Studio, the Japanese studio responsible for Okami and the Beautiful Joe series, was released in 2006 for the PS2. Back then, its impact and success were rather small, and things like IGN's 3 out of 10 review didn't help in attracting a huge player base in the West. How IGN continuously manages to totally misunderstand and disregard some of the best video games in the history of video games is just a side note that must still be addressed in form of this one sentence. Good job, IGN, now fuck off and thanks for nothing! Anyways, Clover Studio didn't manage to generate enough money with its IPs, so they had to close down in 2007. Luckily, some of its talent, namely Shinji Mikami, Atsushi Inaba and Hideki Kamiya, then started Platinum Games and continued to develop such great games as Bayonetta, Vanquish, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and others.
Must be hunting season.
The game's protagonist, Gene, loses his arm in an attempt to save a man bullied by thugs, but then awakens with a new arm, the God Hand. The legend of the God Hand goes back a long time to a fallen angel that became the Demon King Angra and caused havoc in the human world.
What the hell?
A man holding the power of God in his hands defeated Angra and sent him to exile where he is up to this day. That man was given the name God Hand by the people. Today there are still people gaining that power, and there are those of the clan that protects the humans given the power of God Hand. Olivia, for example, coming from that clan, steps into Gene's life and accompanies him. But of course there are bad guys.
I've discovered the one in possession of the God Hand.
Sure about that?
I can feel it.
Look at his left arm. He is a God Hand.
Our duo is faced with 4 adversaries called the 4 Divas that plan to destroy our hero and to awaken and free Angra. God Hand is not a particularly pretty game, but has a certain visual charm and a great soundtrack. Gene's fighting moves do look great though and are really smooth, inventive and creative. Apparently, the first draft of the game was meant to be a hardcore action game without much humor. Luckily, the studio reconsidered and they implemented one hilarious cutscene after the other. I have to admit that the voice acting is cheesy and the humor pretty straightforward, sometimes slapstick, sometimes even sexual in nature. You are, for example, able to punch men in the balls and spank the shit out of the ladies. But I personally just love the humor. If you are easily offended, however, this might not be for you. This game features the infamous Resident Evil tank controls, but they actually work pretty well. After a little getting used to, everything works pretty well. In fact, this game gives you all the control you could ever hope for in an action beat-em-up. You unlock more and more standard attacks as you go along. In the end you have more than 100 and you can assort every attack in your arsenal to every button you wish. Pressing the main button continuously lets Gene do a combo that you personally can customize any way you want. Also, you have an assortment of powerful special abilities on a roulette wheel, and while fighting you generate tension, which you can use once your gauge is filled up sufficiently to unleash your God Hand power. Doing that makes you invincible, faster and more powerful. Then there are the special attacks that can be initiated by staggering or dazing an opponent and following a button prompt on screen. The main feature that makes combat in God Hand so great are the dodge mechanics. You cannot block, but dodge with your right stick. Right stick forward is a duck on the spot, To the side lets Gene sidestep, and to the back makes him do a somersault. Knowing when and how to evade makes a great player, and basically every fight, even on hard difficulty, can be done without getting hit if you play your cards right.
What? You need me to hold your hand or something?
That being said, this game is hard. I managed to get halfway decent at it after about 15 hours of gameplay, and that is also about the time I needed to beat the game on a normal difficulty playthrough. One of the most inventive ideas in God Hand is its level mechanic. If you fight well and evade a lot, you'll level up, which will, in return, make your opponents stronger. There are 4 levels. The 4th is named Dai, because in Japanese, death and the number 4 are pronounced the same way. This mechanic will adapt the game's difficulty to your skills. The higher level you are, the faster and harder the enemies will hit you. If you die, the game rarely lets you repeat large sections. When I got closer to endgame, there were a few frustration moments, but even these quickly transformed into a challenge that I appreciated and made me a better player. What I enjoyed most is that you'll get bosses and special encounters thrown at you left and right, so the game never gets boring or repetitive. God Hand is plain awesome and totally deserves its cult classic status. If you are into action games at all, you owe it to yourself to check it out. Even if you don't necessarily like beat-em-ups, this one is special. You'll probably find a used PS2 disc for $5 or something, and it was recently brought to PSN for the new consoles. If you like more information about this game, you can watch some videos over at Mike Cobb's channel, since he's a great player. Total Biscuit made a great video called "This is why we can't have nice things" on the game, and last but not least, I made a Let's Play. I highly recommend this game, it is really awesome.